This video introduces Chapter 1 of How to Be a Christian at Work. In this short video, we introduce the first key idea that will help you remember what it means to be a Christian at your work. That idea is simply this: just be nicer. Let's take a closer look. In the word nicer, the letter N stands for no compromise. Just like Daniel in the Bible didn't compromise his beliefs on diet when he was part of the Babylonian management training program, neither should you compromise any of your beliefs for the sake of your employer. Check out Daniel chapter 1 in the Bible to see how he did this without jeopardizing his career. The letter I stands for integrity. Later in his career, other managers tried to block Daniel's promotion to second in command, but his track record and personal integrity were impeccable. So much so that those jealous competitors worked behind Daniel's back to undermine his reputation and his faith. How about you? How do others see your integrity at your work? Read Daniel chapter 6 to deepen your understanding of integrity. C stands for compassion. And for this, we turn to Jesus Christ himself. Jesus came to establish the kingdom of God. He lived a life of compassion and never missed an opportunity to be compassionate. Jesus taught his followers to do the same. Even today, he calls to you to be compassionate at your workplace. Matthew 9, 14, 15, and 20 all give examples of Jesus taking time out of his busy schedule to put compassion into action. The letter E stands for excellence. The Bible makes it very clear that God values excellence, and that no matter what your job, whether employee or employer, you should do your very best, as if working unto the Lord himself. The slogan, "Do your best and let Jesus do the rest," exactly captures this idea found in Colossians 3, verse 23. And lastly, the letter R stands for being responsible to others. Life is not only for your own pleasure. God wants to help others through you as a way to draw others closer to Him. The story of the Good Samaritan is a lesson in being responsible, especially for those you might otherwise avoid. Luke 10 verses 25 to 37 show how the Good Samaritan does this, even when it's outside the scope of his work. In summary, the phrase "just be nicer" is a simple yet effective reminder of what it means to be a Christian at work. 5 work days, 5 letters. Can you be nicer at your work? That concludes the summary of Chapter 1. Next, let's join the authors for some further insight and discussion.
So, Roland, we wrote a book together, How to Be a Christian at Work. And the first idea that we present in the book in our first chapter is being a Christian at work means that you should be nicer to people.
Yeah, when we first came up with the idea and we started writing the book, being nicer to people to me felt a bit like, at work everybody should be nice, but the secular workplace really isn't nice. Have you worked in a secular workplace?
Somewhat, not too long.
Well, let me describe. I've had some years' experience in the workplace, and let me just describe when I say nice in the workplace, it really sounds more like when you say, "Oh, what a nice haircut you have," or "What a nice shirt you have." This kind of sort of fake niceness, and people sometimes are nice, but they really don't. They don't really like what you're doing. They don't like you, but they're fake nice. And so when we say be nice as a Christian, when I ran this by some friends, and the first reaction was, "Well, what? Everybody should be nice." So we have to explain it some more.
Exactly. So when we came up with this word nicer, we use it as an acronym, meaning that each letter stands for a different word. So the N stands for no compromise, and we have taken that idea from the life of Daniel. Daniel was a young man who was taken into Babylonian captivity, And as he was taken into Babylonian captivity, he was also drafted for a training program in the Babylonian kingdom. And one of the first things that we hear about him and his friends is that he does not compromise his values and his faith when he is put into this training program. So the N stands for no compromise, and we think of Daniel.
Yeah, and I read that story in the Bible myself, just from a business perspective. I put on my business glasses, and when I read it with my business glasses, it actually came to life in a different way. What happened was, Daniel's recruited into a management training program, like many of people at the office or at the work are. You go into a company training program, and in the company program, they wanted to indoctrinate him so that he could be a better worker, a better servant to the empire. And part of that indoctrination, he didn't really agree with it, but kind of violated his beliefs. And so what happened was he had to draw a line, and he brought God into the workplace. So he said to his boss, rather than just arguing with the boss, he said, well, he didn't even actually explain about God. He just said, I can't do this, and probably his boss already knew that. Brought God into the picture, said, why don't you test your servants for 10 days and see what happens? We'll eat vegetables and water. Everybody else can eat the other food. And then after that, we'll decide. So he didn't make an argument with his boss. He negotiated. He brought God into the picture. He prayed about it. And guess what? God blessed it. The boss looked good. He looked good. And he went on in his career. Very, very interesting with the business glasses point of view on that.
Yes, and if you look at the rest of Daniel's life, is what you see is that he becomes a man of integrity. So N stands for no compromise, and I, from the word nicer, stands for integrity. Daniel was a man who was cut from one piece of wood, as it were. He was the same person when he was at home, when he was praying to his God, and he was the same person at work when he was working. So he lived pretty much out of his faith. He was a man of integrity.
Yeah, and that's, I can relate to that. I carried on with you along the principle there, and I follow I into my work, and I look at, well, what does it mean to have integrity? It just means, like you said, cut from a single piece of wood. When I go to church on Sunday, a lot of times we go to church on Sunday, people go to church on Sunday, and what happens is sometimes people feel like there's a special spiritual side that comes awake at the church with the songs and the music and the teaching. But then when you go back to work, unless you've got some earpieces on playing Christian musical, that kind of disappeared. And so being cut from the same piece of wood really speaks to me, because it says that when I'm at church, my name is Roland. When I'm at work, my name is Roland. I am the same person. And so for me, that makes a lot of sense, because I'm not a politically astute kind of person. I don't do a lot of networking to get ahead. I more rely on my good works or doing a good job and participating as I should. And so just being able to say, hey, it's just me, I can just relax about this, brings a certain comfort. And then if I take that Sunday persona, where I want to do the right thing, where I want to be holy or righteous or honest and true, and I bring that into my workplace on Monday and Tuesday, well, that's an easy way to have that integrity at work. So I found that kind of good.
Yes, because one of the things we want to accomplish in our book to help our fellow Christians and our fellow brothers who are working in the secular workplace is to minimize the difference and to minimize the distance between Monday and Sunday, that the two worlds, they are not so far apart that they don't make sense anymore, but they are actually become almost the same day. They are so close to each other that you are not a different person on Sunday from Monday, that you are the same person cut from the same wood, and you act out of the integrity of your faith, just like Daniel did. The next letter we're going to be looking at is C. C stands for compassion. And for compassion, Roland, we're going to be looking at the life of Jesus. Jesus was also a man who was very busy in his work of proclamation, of teaching, of healing people, of praying for people. But what we see that he did everything out of a sense of compassion. So what does that word do to you as a person who is working in a secular workplace?
Yeah, well, before I get to that, let me answer your question just a second. I read that story again. I thought about Jesus and how he worked in this world, Son of God, but also fully human. And he had a mission, like we get a project at work. He had a 3-year project. Start at this age, go and make disciples, go and preach the word, go and bring the kingdom of God, go and live out the gospel and die for everyone's sins. That's a pretty mighty mission to do in 3 years. But with the business classes again, he had that 3-year project, but he was actually given no resources. Don't use the existing company infrastructure, the synagogues and the priests and the Levites. Don't hire any of the existing personnel that are already working in God's kingdom, but go start new with new guys that maybe are unschooled or completely outside of that realm. And so he had a very challenging project. But still, then you look at Jesus and he's handing out the bread, he's having dinner with people, but he's taking the time to show compassion. Now I know for me, when I'm at work and I'm working hard and I want to get a project done, whether it's 3 months or 3 years, or 3 days or even 3 hours, it's not at the forefront of my mind to say, well, hey, I've got a busy project, now I'm going to take time to listen to this person. Rather, I'm going to say, I don't have time, let me get to you later. So to answer your question, the word compassion is very difficult, especially when I put on my goal-oriented cap to try and get things done, because that's kind of my persona. And this is, Jesus shows quite the other example. Yes. Very good.
And not every letter will communicate to everybody in the same way. And some people might feel stronger in one area and maybe weaker in the other area. But that doesn't mean that you cannot work with these concepts. They are there for you to consider them and to work through them. And the next letter we're going to be looking at is excellent at work. And that means that somewhere you realize that your own work, what you are able to do, is actually a gift from God. That you have received certain talents to be able to work, to be able to contribute to this world. And when you start seeing your abilities as a gift from God, then you see also your work as a gift from God. And what happens then is that suddenly work becomes more than just work. Work then has a chance to become an act of worship, because you are leaning into that which God has given to you in terms of talent, in terms of your abilities, what you can do, what you can achieve, and also in terms of what it is that you are doing in your work.
Yeah, and so in this particular case, the E for excellent really strikes home with me. That's an easy one. As a goal-oriented kind of guy, I can relate to the E. Let's get it done. Let's do it as good as we can. Let's make sure the customers are happy. Whether I'm working as an individual contributor, I used to be a driving instructor way back, and a construction laborer. Those jobs, or in the office as an engineer, or later as a manager, all of those jobs, I just need to do my best. In fact, we developed a slogan in our family. It's do your best and let Jesus do the rest. Which really, that's an easy thing to remember for the kids, for us, for me also at my work. Just do my best and let Jesus do the rest. And actually we added a little sentence that said, and don't be stressed. So actually the don't be stressed thing means I don't need to worry about the result. If I'm doing my best and honoring God with the gifts and talents He's given me in the situation I'm in, I don't need to worry so much about the result. Because it's not about me and my work. It's about, am I doing what I can with my gifts to glorify God? And that was exciting for me. So I like this letter. It's my favorite letter.
That's a beautiful short motto that I think everybody can remember. Do your best and let Jesus do the rest. And out of that then comes also, therefore, less stress. You become less stressed about your work. The next letter we're going to be looking at is the letter R from nicer. And R means being responsible for others. In our work, we can be sometimes very consumed about what it is that we need to be doing. We can be so focused on our own achievements, on the work that we need to be doing, that sometimes we lose sight of others who are working with us. And for that we have looked at the story from the scriptures, the story of the Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan is somebody who does something for another person, who helps another person at his own cost. Suddenly he is responsible for somebody he was not supposed to be responsible. Remember, the priest and the Levite, they pass by this person who is suffering, and the person who was not supposed to help, who was not supposed to be responsible for this person, actually takes responsibility for somebody who is less fortunate. Yeah. And he does that even at his own cost.
Yeah. And that's also very unusual. in the workplace. We talked at the very beginning, we talked about being nice in the workplace, and I'm telling you that the workplace is not so nice. Being responsible for others, in the workplace, it's every man for himself, every woman for herself. It's how am I going to get ahead? How do I get promoted? And I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do it excellent and get out of my way if you're in the way. I might not abuse people, but for sure it's very unusual, extremely rare, I would say, and even difficult for me to say, okay, I'm going to take time out, just like being time out for compassion. I'm going to be time out to be responsible to help somebody else. It's not even part of my performance goals. It's not what my boss asked me to do, but I can see that somebody, like the Good Samaritan saw, the Jewish person on the side of the road, I can see someone is suffering, I can help them. And that's something that we outline in a book with a nice little example of the traveling salesperson or technical person. And it's something we should incorporate. And so I think, as you suggested, we have 5 letters, nicer, and we can use 1 letter for each day as a kind of a short devotion before starting our work and praying about it. And I think if we do this, we take Monday for an N for no compromise, Tuesday for integrity, etc., all the way down the line, we will find over time that people will notice, hey, something's changed. What's different about you, Szaszi? They may not even say that you're so nice, but or they may not identify it as that, but just us living out nicer is like bringing the fruits of the Spirit to the workplace, and no one's going to argue with that.
Definitely not. So, do you like the word nicer?
I do. I like the word. Let me ask you this. Did you make this up?
No, certainly not.
It was good. It was good. Thank you.
This concludes the video presentation. We hope and pray that the provided discussion questions may stimulate further discussion of God's will and the Bible's teachings as it relates to your working life. Thank you for joining with us.